we were operating in an industry that was the need of the hour during the COVID. So it, not as an opportunity, but as a God's grace that you were doing something which was helping big way during COVID. Any activity that we do, whether e-commerce activity or entertainment, content delivery, whatever kind of activity, that content have to be there somewhere. And when you are accessing that content, there is a lot of processing also going behind the scene for that content. Where is that? In a very simple way, it is in a server, it is in a storage device. You are connecting to those servers and storage devices over the network, and then you are getting a lot of good experience. You folks have not experienced that part where one starts downloading a 2 megabyte of file, and it takes one full night to download that 2 megabyte of file. Now, setting up this whole infrastructure requires a capital investment, and this capital investment in India is in the tune of $5 to $7 million per megawatt. In data center, we measure the data center capacity in terms of megawatts. In a data center floor, a lot of racks are lined up, and every rack has a lot of servers in those racks. And then generally, a rack can contain up to 50 servers or more than 50 servers, blade servers.
Right. We talk about hyperscale data centers, we talk about cloud data centers, and I mean, not cloud data centers, but yes, cloud companies using the data centers. And while researching about data centers, I also came through multiple types of data centers. If you could put some light on that, what are the different type of data centers that are available around the world, and what India is focusing on right now, or what India needs, and where is the growth in which type of data center?
India is one of the very few countries which has a surplus generation capacity. India and an AI data center is also a kind of a hyperscaler cloud data center, but with a advanced or a different level of cooling technology. Right. Yeah, in India there is no listed data center company.
Yes.
If there is anything being offered to retail investors for investment in the data centers, I think those are the Ponzi schemes.
Hello everyone. Today I am joined with Sharad Agarwal. He is a CEO of Sify Infinite Spaces, a part of Sify Technologies Limited. Hello Sharad, how are you?
Hi, good morning Prashant. I am all good. Thank you all for hearing me here.
So let us start with a brief introduction. Sharad, would you like to give a brief introduction about yourself?
I have been in this industry for almost 30 years now. And I educated as a computer engineer. I am originally from Madhya Pradesh, a small town called Satna. And I got my engineering done in computer engineering from Indore, Sri GS Institute of Technology and Science, Indore. Initially, I worked as a software developer. Spent times in many different organizations as a software developer, project lead, customer implementation manager, consultants. Spent times in multiple countries. And then since 2005 onwards, I have been working as a business developer for different organizations. In 2016, I got involved in the growth of the cloud business in India, and the growth of the cloud business in India as an employee of Amazon Web Services. I took over as a infrastructure country manager to take care of data center infrastructure growth of AWS cloud in India, and had been part of the strategy making, strategy execution, and launch of two different AWS cloud regions in India, that is in Mumbai and Hyderabad. That's the work I continued to do until 2022. And since 2022, I've been trying to set up different data center businesses or grow different data center businesses. First 2 years, so between 22 and 24, for a private equity-backed company called Vantage Data Centers. And since August last year, that is August 24, I've been trying to grow, or that's actually the idea, to grow Sify Infinite Spaces Limited's data center business.
Okay, so I think the viewer should be assured that whatever information you are going to get in this data center series, this will be one of the most curated and detailed things coming from a very experienced person.
Yeah, let's see.
So
it will all the validation probably will be, or assessment will be, in the comments that you get.
agreed, totally agreed. So let us start with the basics. Let us first understand what is a data center in a layman language.
Think of it in this manner that everyone is accessing a lot of data, whether they are accessing a social networking app, whether they are accessing a content delivery app, whether they are consuming and streaming content, whether you are accessing a app that helps you go and connect to your accounts, uh, your net banking apps from all the banks, or you are going and accessing a app from an airline to book ticket. Any activity that you do, whether e-commerce activity or entertainment, content delivery, whatever kind of activity, that content have to be there somewhere. And when you are accessing that content, there is a lot of processing also going behind the scene for that content. Where is that? In a very simple way, it is in a server, it is in a storage device. You are connecting to those servers and storage devices over the network, and then you are getting a lot of good experience. Uh, you folks have not experienced that part where one starts downloading a 2 megabyte of file, and it takes one full night to download that 2 megabyte of file. This generation and this level of technology that we have, 2 megabyte of file is a blink of an eye that one gets. It's probably the whole 2 GB of a file when you upgrade your iPhone or update your iPhone, that it takes 5 minutes. But otherwise, too. So all that part, connectivity and access that gives you an access to servers and the storage. Now, just imagine that the amount of content that we are consuming, it needs huge amount of storage space, and he needs huge amount of compute power as well. And that is storage and compute power have to be in an environment that is well managed. If you are not able to access a website immediately, you are Twitter friendly, and then you go and that hey, this site is not working.
Agreed.
What the heck is happening? It took me so many minutes to get to this site. That means whatever compute and storage capacity one should have, it should be in the way it is, the demand is, and at the same time, it should always be available. Something can be available always if it is stored in a safe, secured, and always available space. Safety means nobody can go and mess around with it. Security means nobody can intrude in it. And always available means if it needs a lot of power, that power is available. Because when a lot of processing happening, processing generates heat that needs to be cooled. So enough cooling is available. The environment where it is put, it should be fireproof. The environment where it is put should not have any challenges with the safety of the electricity. If there is so much of power there, then it has to be there. Now, this whole safe, secure environment, when one creates and puts hundreds or thousands of millions of the servers and storage devices inside this space, that space is called data center. And it is one of the most critical asset of this era, one of the most critical asset of our time, which we cannot afford to go down at all. And if you go and search it, whenever some down event have happened in a data center anywhere around the world, it had been a news. It had been a global news that some website was not available, some application was not available because of XYZ. Many people would have lost jobs, many people would have lost money because of the faith and the trust that they would have lost on the system. Now, managing all that aspect in a facility, that is the data centers.
Agreed. Totally agreed. And I think this is one of the most detailed, statement about data center that one can understand in just a bit. So thanks a lot for explaining it in such a detailed manner. But again, a very layman man like me can ask that why do we need data center? Why can't we build small server rooms in every, in every kilometers, let's say? Why can't we do that?
So it all is because of the infrastructure that is required, and and how frequently or how differently you can build that infrastructure, and how you can and manageability of that infrastructure. So if a particular okay, let's take it this way. Let me just think, how do I articulate this one? If there are, let's say, 10 or 15 or 20 different types of customers or use cases, a bank, a e-commerce website, a content delivery system, let's say like YouTube or etc., a social network like Meta or Instagram or whichever platforms that we have, a general enterprise from the manufacturing organization or a services organization who wants to host all of this. All of them, when they need to manage their critical assets, that means there is so much of network need to be created to access all these equipment, all these,
all at once.
all at once.
Yes.
Now, you go on creating these data centers in a small manner everywhere and try to bring the network to that. Or you also need to bring a lot of electricity to these places. Now, generally, when it is growing, so a cloud platform where all the services are being offered, they have millions of the servers at one location. And those millions of servers are able to provide as a service, pay as you go kind of a service to a lot of organizations. Right? A startup, when they need to go and do something, they cannot make a huge amount of investment in all these assets. So what they do, they go and consume and use as a service infrastructure,
Cloud
which
spaces.
cloud spaces, right? Now, if you are going and trying to maximize the utility of a capex like that, and make sure that everyone is able to access it without making that capital investment on the infrastructure that is required for a data center, then it makes sense to do it at one place. Then it makes sense to bring all the network infrastructure to one place. Then it makes sense to bring all the energy supply, power supply to one place, and then manage it. And then at the same time, we also need a lot of talent to manage this. Enough mechanical, electrical, civil engineers with the right amount of skills to do this work. And generally, there is no dearth of the mechanical, civil, electrical engineers, but there is always contest or a contest for the right talent to manage that, right level of talent and right level of skill. So whether you have enough people available to manage that with the right skill and right talent, all that aspect, maximizing the capex utility, maximizing the optimizing the usage of the infrastructure, preventing people from making a lot of capital investment, taking the risk on the capital investment, in place of that, using the cloud platforms. All that factor drive to scenario where you build huge campuses. And in these huge campuses, in a concentrated manner, use a lot of big data centers. It doesn't say that we can't build data centers everywhere. Because we still need data centers everywhere, not probably every few kilometers, but at least in every single state. Over the period of time, I'm sure that there will be a data center in every district, but of a different scale. A core data center, a central data center, will be consuming hundreds of megawatts of energy, and a district data center may consume only a megawatt or less than a megawatt, or a regional data center in the state capitals or in state hubs could consume 10 megawatt or 20 megawatt of capacity. Right? So those things will happen over the period of time. But the main reason it's not everywhere, it's because you want to optimize the capital investments and you want to optimize the infrastructure availability.
Agreed. So that's actually logical because if you are setting up multiple server rooms and you are setting up one big data center, it would obviously be much more cost saving and it will be easier for everyone to access the data all at one place.
Yep, and it reduces the capital cost uh, involved for accessing this kind of infrastructure by an enterprise or by a organization. An organization whose core business is their core business, as much as less as possible, they are investing their time and capital in technology infrastructure and are able to take the benefit of economy of a scale without making those investments. It's better. So it makes sense for even from that perspective to have one central location, and from that central location, everyone is accessing the infrastructure.
Okay. So now let's talk about this data center model a bit in detail about how data center companies are making money in this.
So okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of here, that what is involved in building a data center.
Yes.
Uh, a data center is a physical asset, basically. Then it needs to be standing on a land. So it's a building on a land. Uh, a data center consumes a lot of power. Therefore, it has to get a huge power infrastructure, transmission lines from somewhere. Because servers will dissipate heat, which needs to be cooled. So requires a lot of cooling infrastructure, whether the cooling infrastructure is air cooled, water based chillers, or in the new generation liquid cooled, whichever way the cooling. It needs a lot of redundancy, because what we cannot afford to for a data center to go down. That means we cannot 100% rely on the electricity board power. We will need to keep the backup power. So backup power comes from generators. So generators of these days are diesel generators. So you need to have, if you have a 100 megawatt capacity data center, that means you need so much of capacity of generators also. And if you need to be able to have a X amount of backup time, X hours of backup time, that means so much of diesel also you need to store online. So this is the overall infra required. Roughly,
And what do you mean by backup time?
if utility power is down, and if it doesn't come,
Okay.
the utility power supply for X amount of time,
Hmm.
because of any reason. It could be the failure in the grid, or it could be failure in the equipment or in the substations, or it could be a catastrophic event like rains or earthquake, whatever impacts the power supply. If that happens, and if it takes, let's say, X hours to restore, and whatever is the level of X that we can get confidence
Hmm.
of, uh, that number of hours of fuel we need to keep so that we can run the generators without utility power during that period. Correct?
Understood.
Now, setting up this whole infrastructure requires a capital investment. And this capital investment in India is in the tune of $5 to $7 million per megawatt. In data center, we measure the data center capacity in terms of megawatts.
Okay.
This is one aspect to be understood, that even though we store a lot of data and compute a lot of pieces, we store compute, we don't measure the data center capacity in terms of the megabytes or gigabytes or gigahertz of compute power, but we measure it in terms of the power unit, because ultimately that's the biggest consumption item, or most the normalized consumption item, and it has the biggest impact on the cost also.
That
Correct?
was
And
actually surprising for me as well when I started researching about data centers. Ki why are we measuring it in megawatt? Why
yes,
not in data?
yeah, and that's the reason. It's like that ultimately we data centers are consuming energy or consuming infrastructure capacity. So we all normalized it into the energy consumption methods. That was the most easiest way to do it. Right? So every 1 megawatt of capacity that one puts in the data center requires $5 to $7 million of investments in India, capital investment. Elsewhere, it can go up to $10-20 million as well. Now, once we have made that investment, we have to recover that investment, and recover that investment over the X period of time. And generally, the recovery method is that we apply a yield on this capital investment, and that is generally driving the prices of the data center capacity that is being sold. Now, selling of data center capacity is in terms of the leasing of the space along with power. And space here is in the units of a rack. So in a data center floor, a lot of racks are lined up, and every rack has a lot of servers in those racks. And then generally a rack can contain up to 50 servers or more than 50 servers, blade servers. Uh, right. And whatever is that capacity of that rack, then the per month rental charges are applied to the customer, and whatever electricity that they consume, that electricity that they pay for as per the consumption. So the making of the money is in the units of either per kilowatt of power that a customer is consuming, in terms of a space, and in terms of actual units consumed. And the second is, some of the customers may also do it in terms of the space, that how many units of racks that they have taken.
Okay.
And ultimately, we give returns to our investors based on the difference between what the rental we are charging and what is the yield on capital cost and the operation cost that we incur. And then whatever is the P&L is built on that. Yeah. So we make money that way.
Okay. So one question on that you said ki the data center business charges customers based on the number of racks. So it is
Number
also
of
not.
racks, number of racks, and the power consumed by the racks. So if a rack is consuming 3 kilowatt of power, then it's a different rate that they will pay. If they are consuming 50 kilowatt in a rack, they will pay a different rate. So it is a combination of racks, number of racks, and the power that the all number of racks put together consume.
And just wanted to highlight one point here, here also we are not charging on the basis of MB, GB or anything. We are here also charging based on units of racks and the energy that they are consuming.
Yes. So data centers will always charge in terms of a space and power. But when you take a cloud service, so it's quite possible that a cloud service provider will be consuming a space, no, not quite possible, they will be consuming. So cloud service provider will be taking the services of the data centers. They will pay the data center service providers for the space and power and cooling, all that infrastructure. And then because they are bringing the servers and the storage devices, they will charge their customers on the compute, storage, and the network capacity.
Agreed. And the best example is Google Cloud, right? I mean,
Yes,
that's what they are doing.
all the cloud service providers.
Understood. So, as you highlighted the key cost centers as well of the data centers, that we are consuming a lot of power, we will need cooling, we will need in cooling also we can need multiple type of coolers, like maybe water coolers, liquid cooling, or other fan cooling and everything, correct? And when it comes to cost centers, there are racks, there are servers, and everything in that is summed up. So that is one. Now I would like to ask you about Sify. How Sify is focusing on the data center space right now? How are you focusing on the data center space from the company perspective?
Yeah. So let me give you an history first, and then I'll tell you where we are going and what we are doing. So Sify is a company that is born out of internet revolution in the country. And a trivia, I don't know if you all are aware, 15th August 1995. That's the date India got internet.
I wasn't aware of that.
Videsh Sanchar Nigam Limited, VSNL.
Okay.
That was the government-owned telecom company responsible for global communication. They launched internet on 15th August 1995. And it coincides with my graduation also. I also graduated in 1995. And it was a monopoly of the government organization. And over the period of time, government allowed private internet service providers. And Sify, at that time, the way it was called, Satyam Infoway, was the first internet service provider of the country. And it created a lot of internet cafes around the world, around the city, around the country. iWays were the internet cafes. Many kids who grew up in 90s would might have used Sify's internet cafe to access internet. They might have also used Sify's first. They might have created their first email address on Sify as well. So that's where we really started. And the logical extension of the internet business was, because you were providing internet services, then you needed exchanges where you will set up your point of presence, where all the network will be coming in, where all the network connectivity will come in. You will need to put all the web servers, and there will be some organizations who will need some more. So Sify went ahead and launched and built and launched a data center. And that happened to be India's first commercial data center with 1 megawatt capacity. And it was launched in Navi Mumbai, in Vashi, in the above the Vashi station. So Vashi has a very good 7 or 8 or 10 story building on top of the station, the metro rail, the suburban railway station.
Okay.
And this railway station was well connected with people, well connected with the network because a lot of fiber was coming in there. And Sify set up its first commercial data center there with the 1 megawatt capacity, and it is still running. We are continuing to maintain that data center.
What year was it?
Year 2000, September
Okay.
2000. And over the period of time, and in 2000 also happened to be the time when Sify listed in NASDAQ stock exchange.
Hmm.
And Satyam Infoway got a Sify, SIFY, as a NASDAQ ticker symbol. And that's how it was renamed to Sify. So now Sify actually is our NASDAQ ticker symbol, which started being the Sify as our
Okay.
right? And then we are listed in NASDAQ stock exchange for last 25 years. We just finished 25th year
Hmm.
anniversary of listing in NASDAQ, and we are the only one listed since NASDAQ for 25 years. Only other company who is listed in NASDAQ is Infosys, INFY.
Okay. Ah.
I think, but they listed after us, so they haven't finished 25 years yet. But let's do the fact check on that. I mean, it might be wrong also.
Okay.
Okay. But, so that's where we did. But we quickly moved from consumer business to enterprise business. And we started expanding into providing the network services to the enterprises across the country. We started connecting our one of the largest banks everywhere in the country. So thousands of the bank branches got connected by Sify. Indian Postal Services got connected by Sify across the country. And then there are multiple services we launched. And along with that, also the logical extension was that along with the network, you could also do some amount of compute business, storage business, or some amount of infrastructure management business, IT infrastructure management business. So we also started doing that. All these required data centers. All these businesses required good amount of hosting space where we could do compute and storage. So therefore, we started expanding on our data center footprint, and we launched data centers in Chennai, uh, where it is also quite an old data center with a 5 megawatt capacity that we continue to run, and it is web best connected data center in Tidal Park in Chennai. We built a data center in Noida, uh, that is also very well connected data center. Well connected means almost all the telecom carriers have their points of presence. All the connectivities from all the ISPs are there. So it kind of an interconnection between the other different service providers are easy. We launched the data centers in Bangalore. It continues to be there. And then came 2014, 15, 16, where in another wave started of cloud. The cloud wave had already started in 2007-8 onwards. But India started getting the need of setting up cloud infrastructure in the country. And then the first ones to come to India were the two largest hyperscale cloud service providers, Amazon and Microsoft. And then they also followed by Google, Oracle, Meta, and all of them. So when they started coming in, and when they said they want to set up a cloud infrastructure in the country, they also needed a lot of data center space. And they, being a new entrant to the Indian market, they did not like to set up their own data centers, but they went after leasing the existing data center spaces. So Sify then created a 20 megawatt data center in Navi Mumbai, in a place called Rabale. And it then started hosting the cloud service providers. And that provided a next level of growth to Sify and also the data center industry in the country. So it was not just Sify, but there were at least 4 or 5 other service providers also, who also provided data center services, hosting services to cloud service providers in Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Pune primarily. And that demand started growing very quickly. Nobody understood the cloud the way actually is in 2015-16. People who understood cloud at that time were primarily the startups or digitally native companies who started their business in cloud, or the companies who grew very quickly in cloud. These could be the content delivery platforms, or aggregation platforms, or payment banks, or UPI payment systems. Many of these, right? All of them were born in cloud. All of them grew their business primarily by taking services from the cloud service providers. And as they grew, as the demand grew, the data center demand for data center infrastructure also grew. And then suddenly came COVID, where all of us got introduced to Zoom. None of us understood Zoom before, but every single
Agreed.
person in the country knew Zoom. Just imagine the video platforms or the collaboration platforms or all kinds of connectivity platforms. They scaled immediately to work from home. They must be consumed to this extent, and then they were suddenly getting consumed to so much extent. So
Yes.
that elasticity came because there was enough data center infrastructure available, there were enough cloud infrastructure available, and that created another level of demand for the data center infrastructure space. In beginning of 2010 decade, India had less than 100 megawatt of the data center capacity.
Yeah.
I don't know the specific numbers. That's the reason I'm using that way. It could have been even less than 50 megawatt, and it grew by the time COVID hit to approximately 400 or 500 megawatt of capacity, and now it has grown further to 1.2 gigawatt of capacity, and that's how it grew.
Almost 5 to 6 times.
Right, right. And from 1 megawatt of the data center that we launched in 2000, now we are more than 150 megawatt. Yeah. Probably will be touching 200 megawatt soon, within months, not years, right? So that's the way we grew also. Network growth, content growth, cloud growth. And then in 2022, all of us was introduced to artificial intelligence, right? And then AI consumes different level of infrastructure. Now we are talking about GPUs, quantum computing, etc. Our typical server, if it used 500 watts of energy, one GPU consumes 1 kilowatt or 1.5 kilowatt. That is twice or thrice of that.
Yes.
And when we start put the training loads or inferences loads, and if you
Power
put,
consumption.
it needs a lot of consumption, right? So now there was another wave of consumption or the infrastructure required to handle the artificial intelligence. That means by going by the different estimates, that 1.2 gigawatt capacity that we have right now could grow to anywhere between 3 to 5 gigawatt or more in next 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? It all depends on how this artificial intelligence demand grows, what kind of projections that you are looking at, which analyst your projections you believe, or what kind of way the whole scenarios around energy and infrastructure availability develops, or how supply chain develops. Means whichever way, right? And we are in that mode to make sure that we continue to be one of the top 3 service providers in the country and continue to have the market share in proportion to this growth. And we have maintained that market share, and we want to continue to maintain that market share. So Sify's vision is to, one, continue to scale to the demand. If we are in less than 200 megawatts, get to gigawatt of capacity as the demand grows, and do it responsibly. Now, what does responsibly mean here is, if we are consuming so much energy, let's make sure that it's green energy. If we are consuming so much of infrastructure, then let's make sure that this infrastructure is not leaving the carbon footprints behind. If we are using so much of generator capacity, so many engineering equipment, let's make sure that our suppliers are applying the sustainability practices so that they are leaving less and less carbon behind. If we are constructing so many buildings, let's try to use as much green building infrastructure or building equipment, building material as possible. Continue to innovate on that. Right? Try to reuse the old infrastructure in the manner that you don't have to use fresh infrastructure. You don't have to demolish and rebuild anything.
Yes.
As you, a data center that was built 20 years ago might not be useful, and data center built 10 years ago might not be useful in 5 years later. So how do you reuse that? Uh, and continue to do it in the manner that we do as much. We are an Indian company, so as much made in India, as much self-reliance on our own efforts and our own equipment, our own services, and at the same time build a lot of talent.
Giving push to Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Exactly, exactly. Digital India, AI India, intelligent India, and self-reliance, Atmanirbharta. Yeah.
Agreed. So I have one question on that. We talk about hyperscale data centers, we talk about cloud data centers, and I mean, not cloud data centers, but yes, cloud companies using the data centers. And while researching about data centers, I also came through multiple types of data centers. If you could put some light on that, what are the different type of data centers that are available around the world, and what India is focusing on right now, or what India needs, and where is the growth in which type of data center?
So actually, data centers have no type when it comes to real data center engineering aspect.
Okay.
But people have categorized the data center in terms of the capacity and the usage. So let's look into the first capacity. If a data center these days is consuming lots of megawatts, and these lots have been defined differently by different organization or different people. But if I would say in the latest way, if a data center is more than 20 megawatts or a 25 megawatts, and if it is in a campus that will consume more than 100 megawatts, then it is typically called an hyperscale core data center, where you will host cloud, you will host AI. And this definition of hyperscale continued to change. Uh, 10 years ago, anything about 10 megawatt was hyperscale, right? But now people would say that a campus of more than 100 megawatt probably will be an hyperscale. And it's very easily possible in India now that there are multiple campuses of more than 100 megawatt. If not already there, then gradually means those campuses are planned that way. So that is one in terms of the capacity. The same hyperscaler data center in terms of the capacity can also be categorized hyperscaler in terms of the usage also, because they primarily will host core infrastructure of an organization or cloud. So it will have compute and storage capacity of cloud. It will have compute and storage capacity of an enterprise like banks, or an e-commerce service provider, or a content service provider, or in any large conglomerate, or any even enterprise or local service provider. So that is one. Now, in the same way, if an organization is focusing on not building hundreds of megawatts of data center, but let's say 20 megawatt data center, and not offering this data center to cloud service provider and hyperscaler, but only serving the enterprise workloads. So hyperscaler cloud service providers, when they take services or capacity in tens of megawatts. But the enterprises will take the capacity from anywhere between 10 kilowatt to 5 megawatt or 10 megawatt. A large bank in India could take 10 megawatt capacity of data center, and a small and medium enterprise could take only a 10 or 20 kilowatt of capacity. And if an organization is focusing on serving these kind of customers, but we're still building a 20, 25 megawatt of data centers, then we will say that these are regular data centers, enterprise data centers, colo facilities, enterprise colo facilities. So in place of calling that a hyperscale data center, some people may use a term DC colo facility, data center colo facility for enterprises. And then the third category is, let's say if I go and build 2 megawatt data center, anywhere between 2 to 15 megawatt data center, and the primary usage of this data center is not compute and storage, but the primary usage is network connectivity. So if I go and build this data center in Lucknow, Chandigarh, Bhopal, Nagpur, Cochin, Guwahati, Bhubaneswar, Indore, Jaipur, and the primary purpose is that the consumers and the users of data around this area are able to access the IPL match without any buffering, able to watch a YouTube channel without any buffering, are able to access all the content or social networking websites, go on creating the reels, etc., without facing any trouble, then it means there needs to be some compute or storage or buffering or caching facility closer to them. In a way, in what we call in a network term is low latency access to all the network
Yes.
or all the compute infrastructure. Now, if I go on creating that kind of a data center closer to the users, people have categorized those data center as edge data center. They are on the edges, but they are also now getting into the level. Earlier, people used to say that hey, 500 or 1 megawatt capacity is good enough, but now we are saying is even edges will be 2 to 15 megawatt of data center capacity. And then going forward, quite possible, the way you were asking that, is there a possibility of creating a data center every few kilometers? People might go and there might be a need for 100 kilowatt, 200 kilowatt, 500 kilowatt micro edges sites for ultra low latency applications every few kilometers. If that happens, then there could be a possibility of that also. And now these could have an application like autonomous vehicles, which continuously need to be in touch with the environment and continuously be getting access to the data so that they know on a real-time basis if a extra cone or set of cones have been put ahead in a lane and a lane
Yes.
just closed only a 5 minutes back, so that
Agree.
they are well aware of that. Now, if those kind of scenarios starts developing, then there could be over the period of time those micro edges size. And some people feel there could also be pico edges size, a 10 kilowatt data center hanging from the signals, right? Every signal where,
Okay.
right? So that's how it could develop over the period of time.
Because as the data consumption, as the data size of the data increases, we will have to increase, or we will have to put data centers in small spaces so that, as you said, there should be low latency, right?
Yes, and then
That is
the
the major
usage
reason.
the application of the applications that we are consuming, or what is the usage of that infrastructure. If that requires that we need to have a real-time changes happening around us, also being very visible or accessible in that scenario, and that also says that every single organization is a technology company now. Every single
Yes.
organization is driven by technology. So technology is not a supporting tool, but it's a not, and it's not even an enabler. It's a driver of the business. Now, if
Agree.
more and more dependent we get on the technologies, more and more artificial intelligence that we use, or more and more such kind of applications that we use, then there could be newer kinds of data center. So the way I described hyperscale core cloud data centers, enterprise colo types of data centers, edge data centers. These three are already there, and quite possible that over the period of time we will see micro edge or pico edge data centers.
Okay, that's actually interesting. Let's focus on that part geographically. What are the specific geographical requirements when it comes to data centers or building data structure for data centers?
Yeah. So it's not the geography; it's about availability of certain type of infrastructure. So as I specified earlier, we need land, power, fiber, the network connectivity. These three are the key ingredients of building the data center. And all three must be available. There will be obviously trade-off between them, these three, but all three are available, must be available. Something that you cannot trade off is power and fiber. Land, okay, means if you have to buy a super expensive piece of parcel of land because that's the only land available with the best fiber connectivity and best power availability, then you will have to do that. So you may compromise on the land cost, but power and fiber is something is non-negotiable, right?
Agreed. That is like
And
the lifeblood of data centers.
even in that one, let's say if you find a great piece of land, but it does not have land and power, how inexpensively you can bring the power and fiber to that land. That's also becomes a most important part. So it's mainly availability of that. So it so happened that in India so far, uh, because of that, and also because of the historical reasons that the first big consumer of the data centers in India before the cloud service providers came were the large enterprises in the country. And all the large enterprises, majority of them are headquartered in Mumbai. Therefore, Mumbai got the largest share of the data center capacity in the country right now.
I think it is almost 56 to 60%, right?
Exactly. So, a lot of dynamics created that data center capacity in the country of the country in Mumbai, and also because now you have a lot of capacity, and you cannot afford latency between your existing data center and the new scale data center. Therefore, everyone is constrained to grow their capacity within Mumbai only or around Mumbai. And it so happened that because Mumbai and the Maharashtra government got so accustomed to the data center industry, that the all the policy and talent and a lot of ecosystem built around it, so it continues to command an edge over the other cities. But the other cities also developed very quickly. Therefore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Noida, Bangalore, they also Pune, they also came up with the large data center facilities, and over the period of time, they will also grow. But as we grow our fiber capacity around the country, then then it's quite possible that the best place to build the data center will be places where you have very inexpensive land available. You have huge amount of land available where you could put hundreds of megawatts of solar power or wind power, so renewable energy is available, and you are able to bring a lot of power fiber infrastructure there. So as fiber infrastructure develops across the country, then over the period of years, it's quite possible that we will see building of super large data center campuses in new locations as well. Take an example in the US. It's not that every data center is only in the Washington, D.C. area, in the Northern Virginia county, or only in the Northern Washington area in Quincy, or in the Bay locations like New York, or the coastal locations like New York or San Francisco. Now there are the data centers developing in Nevada, or in the very central locations in places like Indiana also. So far in India, the data centers had been either in the metropolitan area or in the coastal cities. So
That was actually what I was going to say. Ki, when I was researching, I also found that majority of the people are preferring to have data center nearby the coastal areas, maybe because the optic fibers are directly coming through
correct,
water bodies and
cable
everything.
landing stations. Yeah, that is
Yes,
also a factor. That is also a factor, right? But as the reliability and the quantum and the scale of the fiber reaches to uh, remote part of the India, the days are not too far when we will be able to build a dream data center in a lowest cost facility, where the power is inexpensive, where you can generate power just behind your data center, what we call behind the meter power. No dependency on the utility power or the grid, and you are able to do that with fully green power. Or just imagine now small modular nuclear reactors. You could go and put many of them in a remote, risk-free location, and right next to it, you could build your data centers. The only reason we are not able to do it mainly because of the availability of the fiber, or the availability and reliability of the fiber in those remote locations. So, so the geography-wise, we should be looking at those scenarios happening over the period of years.
agreed. And when you talk about these small nuclear plants, I think I read something about that, that foreign countries are, growing on that. I think Germany is working on that. Uh,
Even India have started researching on that. So last budget uh, allocated fund for research on a small
yes.
modular reactor, and it also set the policy vision that certain changes that need to happen in the nuclear energy related acts will be done to have a private participation
Hmm.
on the nuclear energy generation. So if all those things come together, then a small modular reactor doesn't take too much of space,
Yes.
and it can. If I could have a small modular reactor inside my data center campus, then the reliability and the greenness or sustainability of that data center operation increases multifold. Uh, in fact, government has also set up a vision of energy transition. Uh, a lot of energy that we do get is coal-fired, and by 2047, almost 100 gigawatt of the energy that needs to, there is a vision to transition it to the nuclear energy. And if all that needs to happen, then a lot of research and public-private participation needs to happen. And I think the government has set a vision for that in this budget. Yeah.
Talking about the government, I would like to ask you about how government is supporting the data center growth in India.
So policy is a key factor or a key enabler to any industry. Majorly, there are five factors that drive any business, right? One is the infrastructure. So we spoke about infrastructure in the length. Second is about capital. We didn't talk about it, but capital
Yeah,
is available based on the returns. Third is the policy, the government support. I'm not taking any order here. Each of them are equally
important.
important, right? So the policy support, government support. Fourth is the supply chain. Everything that we use have to be done in a particular manner
Yes,
with a particular level of quality, and it should be done and scaling everything. And then talent. Yeah, so I think we spoke about talent and we spoke about everything else also. The policy is that one of those five factors.
yes,
And then all these are within the demand circle. So demand, obviously, there has to be a demand. If demand is not there, then
agreed.
none of this happens. So policy is important. And I had been actively involved with the policymakers since 2016. And the government have been eagerly and keenly listening to and making and bringing about the changes in the systems and the policies that makes that makes building and operating data center easier and easier and easier. I'll give you a few examples. Building a data center is a building, and when you are constructing a building, you construct a building as per the rules that are defined
Yes,
by by different authorities, and these
Zara,
rules are put in building code.
yes,
And it will say that, hey, you can construct a building in a land and you need to leave so much space. It needs to have such a level of security built in, fire safety built in. And along with that, there was a particular line item about parking. That if you are constructing a building of a 500 square foot, assumption is it will have people occupying that building.
yes,
If it's a commercial building, people will come and there will be
work.
office spaces. And if you assume that there will be one person every 50 square foot of cubicle, then let's divide 500,000 by 50 and you need to provision so much of parking space. Correct, right? Uh, Now, when you are constructing a data center of 500,000 square foot, it will be filled with servers and equipment.
Yes,
The number of people operating from this data center will be probably 100 in comparison to in any other office building where it might be 10,000 people operating from that 500,000 square foot space.
agreed.
Now, if you were required to build 10,000 parking spaces, not let's say 10,000, 5,000 parking spaces for 100 people coming in, it will be very unreasonable and wastage
Yes,
of resource.
yes, and it will be costly as well.
Yes, and in terms of if you look into sustainability, carbon footprint, etc., you are unnecessarily deploying or consuming Mother Earth's resources that you will not utilize at all.
Agreed.
And government listened to this. And these changes were brought as early as in 2017 itself, where the government looked into putting it in different ways. Earlier, they said, okay, in place of putting one parking space for every 50 square meter, let's change it to 200, one parking space over 200 square meter, or one parking space over 300 square meter, or one parking space over 400 square meter. Then government themselves figured it out that, hey, why do we need to apply this rule on the whole built up area? Why should we not apply this rule on only the office space? So out of the
Agreed.
500,000 square foot, if only 50,000 square feet happen to be the office space, then let's apply that for every 1,000 square foot or 500 square foot, you need one office of the office space. So took this as an example, but government is listening to these kind of constraints from the industry and bringing about the changes. Now, also, there are multiple consultations that government continues to have with the industry leaders, and they continue to keep bringing those changes. And those consultations only resulted into very specific data center policies also that many state governments came up with. And these data center policies are now driving the ease of building the data centers or ease of operating the data centers. Another example, a great example actually, is as soon as the lockdown was announced in March, along with the lockdown, what was announced was the movement of essential service only is permitted.
Yes.
And who would have thought that data center is an essential service at that time? But government reacted to that within 4 days, actually. Within 3 or 4 days of announcing the data center, without announcing the lockdown, there were fanatic representation being made to the government that everyone is switching to work from home. How will they work from home if the people who are operating the data centers are not able to go to the
working, yes.
or if we are not able to continue to operate the data centers, right? And government made that change within 4 days of announcing that. So yes, so government is very supportive. There is long way to go between us and the policy. There is always a policy. There is always a gap in the policy and the industry expectation. But that's not only an Indian phenomenon. It's a world over phenomenon.
Yes.
Because the industry and the technology keeps growing and developing over the period of time, and the policy has to keep pace with that. So there are enough passionate people in the government to continue to work with the industry and continue to work in the ways that the policy is supportive to the industry.
So, talking about the 5 factors that you just mentioned, policies, manpower, or you said talent, and we are talking about power, we are talking about policies, and all the 5 factors that you mentioned, what makes India, favorable when it comes to data center, considering all these 5 factors?
Actually, all of them. So when we go to infrastructure, energy is the key enabler of the data center. And India is one of the very few countries which has a surplus generation capacity. It may be a surprise for you, but India has more than 400 gigawatt of the generation capacity. At any given point of time, the peak usage have not crossed beyond 220 gigawatt yet. And this is a fact that you will find out in Power Ministry website also, Ministry of Power's website also. There is a data point there, right? So one is that energy availability. So infrastructure-wise, we have land and energy available. We are not constrained on that. So infrastructure component, that is the one. Second, on the capital, let's park the capital for a moment, because the capital will be available from multiple sources within India, and there will be capital and investors coming and investing from outside and everywhere around the world. And they will always be driven by the returns. And the returns are the factors of demand and all the other cost components that we have described. Other than the capital, all the four other factors are the cost factors, right? So the capital will be the factor of that. So let's leave that behind, and let's assume that if all the other fours are favorable, the capital will follow. And actually it is following right now, right? So the infrastructure wise, I think we are one of the best digital infrastructure in the world. And with the policy support and with the support, with the focus on the infrastructure growth, and we will continue to have a great amount of infrastructure. The other component of the infrastructure is the sustainable and renewable infrastructure. Government policies are supportive, and they are consistently working towards making it even better on the growth of the solar power, wind power, and the storage of the energy, all that aspect, or even the nuclear energy, the way we talked about. So that makes infrastructure is a good part. Policy, as we discussed, government is supportive. Some of the other countries have started resisting the data center industry, primarily because of the sustainability component. But India has not been doing that. India is supportive of data center industry. So government is very supportive. So policy wise, government is trying to attract data center as an industry. Talent, India has enough talent. Right? India is talent capital now. The only challenge in the talent is one of my colleagues also mentioned this during one of the panel discussion, and I fully agree. Uh, we have a lot of engineers available, but we just need to make sure that we are able to find talent among those engineers, and we are able to develop them into talent that are right for the growth of the industry. Correct.
Agreed.
So that is the challenging part, but obviously there is enough talent pool available. How do we as an industry and how do we as mentors and coach develop that talent is something on us. And we are making efforts. All of us are making efforts in our own ways that how do we develop that talent. So that is also the positive side. And then the supply chain. With Made in India, Make in India initiatives, uh, every single component that goes in building of the data center is now made in India. Uh, it is a different thing that we may or may not procure it from within India, everyone in the data center. That could be a factor of availability, quality, etc. But the way it is growing, uh, everything we will be able to source from within India. And if that happens, India does have cost advantage while doing the manufacturing of all types of equipments. And that also delivers the cost advantage. As I said, in India, it takes $5 to $7 million of capital to construct or build or commission 1 megawatt of data center capacity. In comparison to that, elsewhere around the world, it could even take 10 to 15 to $20 million. So the cost of doing deploying the data center in India is less. And then one of the major factor that we all need to be aware that with 1.4 billion demand, people's demand, uh, Indian data center industry or everything we do in India, we have the threshold demand within. And that scale that it brings can be useful for the regional consumption around the country in the region. And that also makes India as an attractive place. India does not have to rely on a global demand or regional demand. But the local demand itself provides the scale, which could offer the economy of scale and which could further develop the cost advantages within the country. So these are the all the positive factors towards what we do in India. One thing that I remember, another fun fact, or a kind of an equipped one, when tsunami happened, a tsunami hit multiple countries that in the early 2000s. India, southern part of India was hit, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, many countries were hit. And the philanthropists around the world started getting together to organize support for every country, every city, every coastal area. India had started growing. India had a big pool of angel investor, venture capitalist, Indian venture capitalists in the Bay Areas also, very passionate Indians. They all got together and started collecting funds. Bill Gates Foundation also started collecting funds. And at that time, I remember Bill Gates making a comment that he's focusing on Indonesia, Sri Lanka. His foundation will make a full focus on that area. And India is being taken care of because India got the problem statement, but India also got the solutions. So, so it was not for him to say that he will not provide funds to India or his focus will not be in India. But he's saying, okay, I'm prioritizing on others, but obviously working with my Indian colleagues to keep
I
a
have faith on India.
that. So with all our problems, with all solutions that we have, that also gets us enough demand, enough scale, and enough. You could say scale to get us enough economy of a scale that brings us the advantageous position.
Agreed. Totally agreed with the thoughts. As you said, India is growing, and as you have mentioned the estimates for the coming years, I think it's going to boost. But when I talk from an investor's perspective, when I ask my friends or small retail investors, do you know there is a data center business, or it's growing, it's going to boom, because as the data size increases, it's going to boom. They generally deny कि we don't know about data center businesses that much because they aren't aware.
Okay, so there is no platform available right now for retail investors to put money in the data centers.
Hmm. Yes.
In India,
Except the
there,
listed companies, right?
yeah, in India there is no listed data center company yet.
Yes, agreed.
If there is anything being offered to retail investors uh, for investment in the data centers, I think those are the Ponzi schemes. And there was probably one Ponzi scheme running for last couple of years, and it went bust a month or two ago.
Okay.
Uh, uh, so, so I would say that retail investors, I won't say that, I won't categorize it's a negativity about the retail investors. There is nothing that retail investors have right now. Uh, there is no platform for them to invest in a data
Agreed.
center. And data center being a capital heavy business, uh, there are no small companies trying to build the data centers. The data centers are only being built either by professionals backed by private equity, or it's being built by the large conglomerates,
Corporations.
corporations, right? So it could be a professional like me who have good data center experience coming together with two or three more and convincing a private equity to make an investment, and I do some entrepreneurial thing, right? So that could happen. But retail, small companies, they will not be able to do that. So I won't say it's a negative sentiment around the data center. There is not enough information available to retail investors because there is no
Yes.
retail platform.
Participation.
There is no platform for the retail participation.
Yes.
That will change. That will change soon. The way it is growing, the data center is growing. Um, there will be the people who will come with the public offerings, and they will offer over the period of time. They will go and raise money from the retail investors also. So over the period of time, I would say that retail investors should be keeping the watch on the uh, uh, or making themselves aware about how the digital transformation is happening in the world, how technology is transforming the businesses, how technology is even getting to a small retail shop also. Even a small retail shop these days will have the barcode scanner,
Yes.
not just in metropolitan cities, but even in these small cities. Even the
Yes.
retail shop will start managing their inventory in a system locally. And they will be probably using a chartered accountant service in the manner that chartered accountant would be getting all the data automatically in place of in the bahi khatas, right? In the printed bahi khatas, right? So they need to watch that, and what is the impact of that into the growth of the data center, correct? And how somebody is able to use the data center instance. So people need to make themselves aware of that. And when the opportunity comes in, they make an investment. But I would like to make sure that with your platform, you tell people that there is no platform available for retail investor for data center investments,
Directly. Yes.
direct investment. There is no company listed in India right now who is offering the data center.
Hmm.
Uh, And if a company comes and seeks an investment in the data center, it's no more than a Ponzi scheme, which will go bust,
Agreed.
right? I
Yes.
want, let's make sure that the people are aware of that. But keep a watch. It won't be more than a year or two before they will get chance to participate in the data center growth.
So should I ask, are we going to expect Sify's name also?
Everyone will go and invest. See, every organization in India who is doing the data center business will go public. Will go public at some point of time, right?
Agreed.
Uh, whether it happens in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. Some may do it in a year or two, some may do it in 3, 4, 5 years. It will be driven by multiple factors. I'm saying that there will be an investment platform for available for people. Until then, they should gain knowledge and keep a watch and don't get uh, embroiled in unnecessarily risk and challenges of the Ponzi schemes.
Totally agreed. Even while I was researching about data centers, I read a few con calls in which data centers were mentioned and everything, but none of them are directly, providing the data center service. So then, as a retail investor, I thought, why not invest in the services that are given to the data center? If data center is not available, let's focus on the pre part, so that let's make money from that point of view.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. So right now
that's
you can rely on a lot of manufacturing organizations, lot of real estates. Some REITs may be using
yes.
may have a data center as a portfolio. Yeah, yeah. So you can go on doing that. Yes, yeah.
Totally. So last few questions. What excites you the most about the future of data center in India?
Again, all those factors, 5 factors that I told you, right? Uh, it These are the factors that makes me keep me excited on every single day. That we have enough infrastructure available to build data center. Government is supportive. Uh, Supply
Talent is there.
talent is there. I get chance to develop the talent. In my phase of career, I get chance to mentor, coach, build new talent. Probably, I get to take pride on the facts that I had been on the driver's seat in delivering a lot of infrastructure in the country, which made huge difference in the digital transformation journey in the country. Take a pride on fact that we will continue to do that. Um, Selfishly, I felt most secured around COVID, mainly because we were operating in an industry that was the need of the hour during the COVID. So it not as an opportunity, but as a God's grace that
Yes.
you were doing something which was helping big way during COVID.
Yes.
Um, I could say that during COVID time, a lot of things that has happened, like deployment of COVID as an application, deployment of Arogya Setu. Uh,
Yes.
Remember that these new fresh deployments happened from zero to millions of users every single day, and
Agreed.
it all became possible because uh, I remember I seeing people spending 4 or 5 days all together inside the data center, managing and maintaining the data center. So take pride on those fact that I led those kind of people who were also behind the scene COVID warriors, who never got to be known about. That
Agreed.
while everyone was accessing their system from home, they were accessing because somebody hadn't gone there to their home for 7 days and straight, and maintaining the infrastructure in a data center. So all these things excite me actually. All these things excite me. Then the new kinds of demands coming in that require more and more data center. Uh, Conviction that every single organization is a technology organization now. Few years back, an organization's technology budget was in low single digits of the overall budget, right? So 3% or 4% or 5%
Yes.
of the overall budget. Now
Yes.
it
Major chunk.
has
Yes.
crossed, for some organization it has crossed the teens figures. For some
Agreed.
organization, it is almost 20% of the budget is going into the technology. Somebody
And
was saying
even the
that.
government is also pushing that. I mean, while as a CA student, while we study law and everything, how companies are to set up their AGM and everything digitally, they have to do that digitally. So government is also giving a push.
Correct, correct. Somebody was telling me the other day, I was meeting a banker in New York, and he says that the next bank failure will not happen because of the credit, it will happen because of the technology. So even that kind of a comment was being made. So technology dependence or technology enablement and technology's dependence on infrastructure. Then building of this infrastructure sustainability, so that we are able to achieve net zero carbon footprint. Those challenges. These are exciting aspects.
Totally agreed. Just one last question. While researching, I read about something called AI data centers. So is that data center giving space for AI or AI being used for data center operations?
So when somebody says AI data center, it's basically meaning that that data center being used for AI.
Okay.
And an AI data center is also a kind of a hyperscaler cloud data center, but with a advanced or a different level of cooling technology. Uh, Now, you remember initially I defined a unit of data center in terms of the
Yes.
racks and the power.
Yes.
Now, a rack generally consumes these days 10 to 12 kilowatt of power if it is hosting cloud on an average. And average means is that some rack may be hosting 3 kilowatt and some racks may be hosting 25 or maybe consuming 25 kilowatt of space. But if you fill those racks with a lot of GPUs, and let's say NVIDIA GB200 GPUs, there are 72 GPUs that can go in a rack, and every GPU consumes approximately 1.5 kilowatt. That means within one rack, there is a consumption of up to 130, 140 kilowatt. My math and numbers may be here and there, so nobody please troll me for that. but but 72 GPUs and 130 kilowatts. So where 10 kilowatt was being consumed, now in that same unit you are consuming 130 kilowatt.
Yes.
So density of electrons is increasing. The density of processing is increasing. Therefore, heat generation is increasing. Now, cooling that part is being done using different technologies. So, direct to chip cooling, liquid cooling, or immersive cooling. The the chip itself is immersed in a liquid where it keeps getting cooled,
Yes.
or you have a coolant passing through the GPUs,
Yes.
so that as soon as heat is generated, it gets transferred into the
Absorb.
coolant, and then
Yes.
it goes around. So because of that cooling technology, AI data center basically means is that it has the ability to host 130 kilowatt racks. In fact, Sify is the only one certified by NVIDIA to host 130 kilowatt GB200 liquid cooled racks in India. Elsewhere, there are many, but in India, that's the one, right? So when you refer to AI data center, it basically means that. But
Understood.
there is also an aspect of AI being used in the data center. If a data center has so many engineering components and it's being managed by only few people, then it needs to have automation. It needs to have self-healing capabilities. It needs to have capabilities so that as soon as a fault is occurring, it needs to be brought into attention and somebody is fixing that fault, or we grow to an extent that something fixes the fault automatically also. That's the self-healing. There is a work going on that side. So
Okay.
when we start using that kind of capability, then it's also a AI use case to manage a industrial, complex industrial setup like a data center. That's a work in progress.
Okay. So thanks a lot, Sharad, for joining today. I think this is one of the most detailed talk about data centers that will be available on YouTube. I haven't found anything like this detail about data centers. So thanks a lot for sharing your expertise. Thanks a lot for sharing your ideas here.
No worries, and thank you so much, Prashant, for organizing this. You asked all of your very smart questions, and there was a very logical flow to this. I'm impressed the way you had come prepared for this, and I'm sure this podcast will be very well taken.